And in the Old Testament, there was another issue that because the sacrifice was inferior to us, it was also only covered specific sin or a specific period, and then after that we sinned again, and then we have to sacrifice again. So it was continuously. So technically in the Old Testament, people would have supposed to sacrifice every 2 hours. But again, it was, if a sacrifice was the thing that would have cleaned the sin, yeah, they would have needed to sacrifice every 2 hours. But it was a representation of something else. And the representation was of a perfect sin, a perfect sacrifice, which would be the Messiah. And the reason the Messiah, Yeshua, was a perfect, because he didn't have sin in him. He didn't have a human father. He was conceived by the Spirit of Elohim, and he had only a physical mother. And it's very important. Your identity doesn't go by your mother; it goes by the father. And therefore, he didn't get the sin of Adam. Okay, so he started again from basically from zero. He could have sinned. He had the option to sin. He chose not to. So he had a combination of two things. He didn't have a sin from Adam, and he also in his life he didn't sin. So he was perfect. He did not deserve to die. He was the only human being that ever lived that wasn't deserved to die. He chose to die for our sin. Now, if you accept Yeshua as your sacrifice, then you're saved, because he cleans your sins, and then basically you don't deserve to die. That's the legal forms of this issue. Now it's very interesting, because in the Old Testament they didn't know about Yeshua as a person, but they did know him as a concept. The sacrifice in the Old Testament was in order to represent Yeshua, and that was the issue. It's not that the issue that they killed animals. They knew that they were killing something that will clean them from all the sins, and that's why the issue of the faith of the old people of the Old Testament. For example, the Cain and Abel, that's very important, because the reason Elohim did not accept the offering of Cain was because it didn't have blood in it. And again, it has to be a soul for a soul, and a soul is in the blood. So that's the reason why Elohim did not accept the offering of Cain. Judaism confuses about this issue very much, and I'll talk about Judaism in this program, and I write about them in the book. But they represent sacrifice with issues that don't have blood. Not only that they haven't sacrificed in the last 2,000 years, for all kind of reasons, and they represent egg. They use egg to represent sacrifice, and that's totally out of the question, and they just don't understand this issue. They also confuse the neshama with soul, and for them neshama is the important element of the human being, and neshama is not in the blood. So that's one of the reasons why they don't understand they completely don't understand the concept of the sin, the blood, the soul, the sacrifice, and they just use things that are not legally not justified. By you eating the egg and Passover, it doesn't represent the sacrifice of Yeshua. In the book, the true love of Elohim, I divided the world's events into 10 periods, from the very beginning to the very end. And after Yeshua was sacrificed and then was raised from the dead and then went up to Shamayim, we live since then in a period of 2,000 years, which is called the period of grace, in which people can become born again. And that's another issue, that it happens exactly when you become saved, but it's two different things, and people confuse it. It's you are saved and you become born again. It just happens that it's the same time. Then in the future there's going to be a period of 7 years in which the Satan is going to establish his world, his kingdom, and he's going to bring a false Messiah. For the first 3.5 years it's going to look pretty good, and things are going to be convenient for most people, if you're willing to join the herd. But then after 3.5 years everything's going to collapse, and then basically all the horror that the Bible talks about is going to happen in the last 3.5 years. And basically the world's going to go into self-destruction, and the real Messiah, Yeshua, is going to come at the very end, to save Israel and the entire world, whoever survive. And then it's going to be the resurrection, the judgment, and so on. There's another period after that. I won't go into that now.